Board meeting to order, and I will have Blair do roll call for us.
Mr. Capitan?
Here.
Mr. Steen?
Here.
Ms. Fry?
Here.
Mr. Hagan? Ms. Haugen?
Here.
Mr. Davison?
Here.
Mr. Madler?
Here.
Ms. Saar?
Here.
Ms. Bollinger?
Here. Brian had said he was going to join so we can watch for him via Teams. He had let me know that, so let's just watch or else something came up. Next on the meeting agenda is the approval of our August 5th meeting minutes. Did everybody get an opportunity to review the meeting minutes? Are there any changes or adjustments to the minutes?
I'll move to approve.
Any second to that?
Second.
Second by Dan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is just a general discussion, and I included in the packet that was sent out, as well as the one in front of you, a copy. Advisory board terms. Just getting a little ahead of the game. We do have two board members, Carrie and Brian's terms are coming up the end of this year. There are no limit on terms, so I just put that in there. So in this next month, I will reach out to both Brian and Carrie and talk about their intentions, if they would wish to continue, or if they, what their intentions are with the board. And then I put it's also in your handbook, if there is indications, or if anybody else has any indications, if they need to resign from the board, this would be that time in November, and then we will talk about the next step in November for those board terms. And I put a summary of that in there as an overview of how we do that, but that will be coming up in our November board meeting to review those terms and our next steps for the December meeting, and possibly if we need to accept some applications on that process. For that, any questions on that process? And I will follow up with either Taylor or Robert. I'm not sure, Commissioner Capitan, I'm not sure, does the commission appoint? Will you be staying on, or
That may go to
one of,
the next election, whoever takes the
Okay,
portfolio
so
over.
that's kind of like in that December,
I could,
January?
Typically,
I could stay on
Okay.
if I was appointed, but
Okay,
it usually moves with whoever has the health department portfolio too.
okay,
That's identified at that planning committee meeting, discussed among the commission following the commission meeting, the second meeting in November, and then formally adopted as part of the first meeting in December, when new commissioners are sworn in and the assignments are formalized.
okay. Thank you. I will make sure we have that on for December as well. The next item, anything else with regards to that? Our board terms start then January 1st, so we will continue that process. That's all in there. We were, next, Jason Matthews is joining us via Teams. His intention was to be present with us today, but unfortunately, last evening, he notified me he's not feeling the best, so he is going to join us via Teams. And I appreciate, Jason, that you are with us virtually. It's not the best in this room, but thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully you're not overdoing it. But wanted to have this opportunity to present a little bit. He has been working with the zone, and actually in August, he came out and presented along with myself and our managers, Samantha, Shayna Huvenen and Carissa Cowley to our team, kind of an update on where we are as far as the alignment of our vision and values and some things we've been working on. I wanted to present that here, some of that, because it really gave a good flavor of where we are as a zone. Jason had an excellent part of that presentation and really provided some feedback that our zone team members really appreciated. And I think it really showed a lot of work that the whole team and a lot of strength that our team members have from where we came a few years ago to where we are now and the vision of where we're going. So Jason, do you want, you have the presentation that Jason provided in front of you, the PDF, and then we will also have it up on the screens, but it's a little easier to see it in front of you than these little screens. So I'll turn it over to you, Jason.
Well, thank you, Gail. And I was planning on being out there today. I always prefer in-person presentations, but when you test positive for COVID, you should probably stay home. So I decided to stay home today. So with that, I appreciate it. Just want to walk you through the process. It's been a great process, and we have really turned a corner here as a zone with the alignment team. And I'll also give you an update at the end of this presentation as to where things stand at the moment. But it's been a long process, and I want to walk you through where we started and where we are right now. So when you take a look at the foundation of the organization, of the agency, we have the mission, the vision, and the values. And of course, that's very straightforward. Your mission is who you are and what you do. Your vision, of course, is that desired future state. And this shows how success will look and feel. And the values are those core beliefs. And what I really zero in on with those values, particularly for an agency like Cass Human Service Zone, is that you try to use those values to set the tone for interactions amongst employees and with clients. And you have that at the bottom of your agenda for your meetings. And our work over the course of the last few months has been in trying to create a framework and those processes that are going to put into action those visions or that vision and those values. And the whole point of this is, as I said in the slide here, is to keep that vision and values front and center in all that you think, say, and do as members, as team members of Cass Human Services Zone. Now, how we got here, just by way of context here, the current mission for Cass Human Services Zone is, and this was already established, is Cass Human Services Zone provides services to individuals and families who are vulnerable to meet basic needs and to promote self-sufficiency. That was what we were working on. That's what we worked with, and we built from there. And the vision that we established back last year, and the values that flowed from that, because everything cascades down from the mission, is united in providing people-centered services to our community. And our values is, as a team, we will lead with integrity, act with compassion, and serve with respect. So this development of this vision and values goes back to last year. And we began with a survey in March of 23. I was brought on by Gail to guide in the development of a new vision and set of values for the organization. And we conducted a benchmark survey, which was then followed up in May of 23 with focus groups from employees, which really turned into really kind of working groups. We had some very good discussions out of those focus groups, which then led later in that month to a visioning session with the leadership team. So that's where we developed the vision and the values. statements. From there, we then went into the alignment phase, and that alignment phase was designed to, again, try to create that framework in those processes by which we would align the vision and values with all that you think and say and do within the organization. An alignment team was put together in the fall of last year. We had some meetings, but what really jumped out to me, and I communicated this to Gail, was that the alignment team at that time, as it was constituted, really was very much rooted in the past and could not seem to break out of some past experiences and was really focused on communications. There's been a lot that the agency's gone through over the years. We know that. And they really kept coming back to communications and to teamwork. And it presented a hurdle. And I made a recommendation to Gail that we pause that process and that we go into conducting a climate assessment where we would go in and really assess the culture of the organization and do a really deep dive. Because the only way that we could do that, I felt, was we could not align the vision and the values unless if we identified what were those issues within the culture of the organization, the climate within Cass Human Services Zone. So you see there, we conducted the survey back in January at the beginning of this year, which was then followed by Zoom meetings, employee interviews in February, which was then followed by a leadership team meeting in April. And then we have now begun the alignment team meetings again earlier this year, last month in September. And those meetings are going very well. We're meeting every Monday at 1 o'clock via Teams. We had a benchmark meeting on September 11th where we had everybody in the same room. It was an in-person meeting. It was a workshop. Went very well. I'll be coming back out there for at least 2 more in-person meetings. But the work that we're doing right now, we're moving right along, and we're building off of what we found in the climate assessment. And I really want to walk you through that climate assessment. And the reason for that is the climate assessment was very revealing. And what I wanted to do in that climate assessment is I had really 2 objectives in the climate assessment. The first was I wanted to confirm or refute the assumptions, because I felt as though there were a lot of assumptions that were being made by employees. I would ask them respectfully, of course, as the facilitator, but I would challenge them based on what? Can you give me examples? And they could give me a lot of anecdotes, but they couldn't give a concrete example. And that told me that we were dealing with mesofacts within the organization. And I want to identify what those mesofacts are. So very simply, there were 2 assumptions that kept coming out from the alignment team, the previous alignment team last year. And that was that Cass Human Service Zone has a poor culture and that the public has a very negative view of the work of the agency. And with that, in not being able to get them to provide anything concrete, we went into conducting this climate assessment. And I always look for the mesofacts. And there are 3 types of facts. There are the fixed facts. Sun rises in the east, sets in the west. That's a fixed fact. All right. There are changing facts. The temperature, the stock market at any time the market's open. Those are changing facts. But mesofacts are those slowly changing facts, particularly within an organization, where things change slowly and almost imperceptibly over time, that people don't even realize that they've changed. But yet their mindset is still firmly fixed on the way things were, or they think, based on their assumptions. And so I wanted to identify that and see what we could come up with. And so that led us to the climate assessment. And we conducted that assessment in January of last year, or January of this year. And we've really focused in on 5 critical areas. We had 16 questions, so it was a long survey. we focused in on 5 critical areas: connection and value, collaboration and teamwork, communication, trust in the workplace, agency, work environment, and culture. I was very pleased that we had the survey open from January 4th through the 12th. We had a 53% response rate, which is excellent. 62 out of 116 employees took the survey. And the results, I felt, were very revealing, and I think Gail feels the same way as well. When I put the report together and we're going through and scoring everything, I always keep the 80-20 rule in mind. And that was, I would ask them a series of questions, strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree. And then I'd also ask them healthy, very healthy. And what I always do is I would look at the sentiments there. So the closer a rating is to 80%, the healthier an organization is in that particular area. So you arrive at that sentiment by taking the scores that you have for those that strongly agree on something, you put that together, that's your positive score. And if they indicated in the survey that they disagree and some strongly disagreed, you put that together, and that is your negative score, your negative sentiment. A neutral sentiment would be don't know. Although it's been my experience in North Dakota that the don't know sometimes is passive aggressive. They'll pick don't know because they don't want to say anything negative. But we set that aside and we say that that's neutral. So when we looked at that and we go through those areas, we were able to get a really good picture as to how healthy the organization is. And this is the key finding. We asked, how would you rate the overall work environment within, Cass Human Service Zone? 87% said it was either very healthy, or fair. 87%. When we asked them, how would you rate the overall work environment within your department? 85% said it was either very healthy, or fair. And in all those circumstances, very healthy or healthy were the top responses. So that's where we arrived at 87% for the agency and 85% for the department. So then we broke that down. And this is where we looked at where those scores, how certain factors, I should say, were scored. When we asked them, this is very healthy to very healthy. These were areas that scored 80 or higher, 80% or higher. My colleagues provide me with assistance when I ask, 97%. Feel my work is making a positive impact on others, 89%. Colleagues are willing to help one another, 85%. Coworkers respect each other's contributions and opinions, 84%. My work is valued and appreciated by my supervisor, 82%. That's the same number for people saying they feel comfortable in the workplace. And then also feeling supported by my supervisor and my coworkers, mutually respecting each other, both came in at 81%. So these were on the Likert scale questions we're asking about. Give them a statement, and do they agree, strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree? So all of those scored 80 or higher. When you then look at what could be classified as good to fair, those would be those areas that would score between 79 to 60%. You see the list here. And this is okay. There are areas that you have to work on, but good to fair is good. Feel a sense of belonging in my department, environment where there is constructive problem solving. The work is being valued and appreciated by agency leadership. They feel supported by the agency leadership. Collaboration and teamwork is encouraged by the department. There's a sense of camaraderie within the agency and the department. They feel that they can state their opinions to the agency leadership. They feel as though there's effective communications between the workers and department management. They feel as though there's effective communication in the department and agency. They feel as though there's an open door policy in the department and with agency leadership. and they feel that feedback is encouraged in the department and agency. So you'll see from the top there with feel sense of belonging in my department down to where feedback is encouraged in department and agency, we went from 79 down to 60. So that's in descending order there. Areas that were flagged as needing attention. These were areas that were flagged as they got, below 59%. That feeling that they're well informed about updates and changes within the department, 58%. That they always receive information to do their job, that the agency's physical environment facilitates and encourages interaction and collaboration, and that information flows freely between the agency and the departments. So here you see here that they're zeroing in on communications. Communication was a major issue that came out. Well, what we do is when we do a survey, I guess I should pause right there. Are there any questions from anybody?
I was just going to mention, Jason, if anybody has questions, I'll watch for that, so I can pause,
Yeah.
Jason. I'll be the moderator here. So
Good.
any questions or comments? That will give you a break as well. Okay,
No, jump in at any time.
and maybe
so
introduce
when we-
yourself. I didn't give that opportunity.
Sure.
We have a question.
I'm Jen Sarr. I'm the
Go for
Assistant
it.
Director for Educational Justice with the Fargo Public Schools. And this is probably not a question that can be answered right now, but I'm wondering if it's something that you could provide would be the percentages for that good to fair range, just to see, I heard you say they're in descending order, but to be able to see which of those might be closest to the healthy and which might be closer to the needs attention. If that's something that might be a follow-up, I'd appreciate it.
I can do that for you. I'll send that over to Gail in the coming days, and she can share it with you. No problem with that. Any other questions? Well, we did the survey, and one thing that you always, in my line of work, we're always trying to, when we look at surveys, is we try to identify if there are any false negatives or false positives. So we then went in, when you take research, you're running it through a funnel. And we took all of this data and information. We then went into employee interviews. And we conducted those interviews in February. And we wanted clarification on 5 areas. We wanted clarification on general agency impressions. We wanted clarification on support from agency leadership, communication, collaboration and teamwork, and then agency vision and values. When we took all that information and we were able to look at the survey results, and then we were able to look at the comments in the focus groups and the employee interviews, we were able to arrive at some very clear themes. And those themes, we had 5 themes that emerged from this research process. The first theme was that many employees perceive the public as viewing Cass Human Service Zone in a negative light. It was very clear to me that that is a clearly identified mesofact. The only thing that employees could share were anecdotes. They could not cite any media stories that were within the last 12 months. They were going back 2 or 3 years, even further back. There was no mention of any recent negative media stories, but yet there was a deeply embedded sentiment, particularly amongst long-term employees, those that have been there 10 or more years in particular, that the public views the service, the agency in a negative light. So that's a mesofact. Now, I'm not dismissing those feelings. Clearly, some were, I don't like to use the term, but I think it applies here. Some were traumatized by some of the negative stories from a few years back, and that left a scar on them. But in looking at where the agency is today, it's night and day to where the agency, and so that we have to identify that and flag that. So that was the first theme there. The second theme was what is very positive, is that there were generally positive remarks for the agency administration. There were also some pointed observations. But to be very blunt about it, and I would say this even if she was not at the table, Gail got glowing reviews from many of the employees. There were many, I should say, that believed that the agency administration was being very responsive. They were approachable. They had an open door. There were some that were critical in that Gail's background is not from the world of human services. And yet there were others in those discussions that said they didn't think that was a bad thing, that they felt that the fact that the administrator doesn't come from the human services world gives her a different perspective, gives her more of the perspective of from the outside and the perspective of being a CEO, and that is beneficial. A couple people said, that's our job. We come from the human services world. The administration, they have a lot of balls in the air that they have to take care of, that they have to juggle. So that was a sentiment that was expressed by some. But you had comments that were, I thought, very positive, where they say they're trying. They're trying to engage. What do they mean by trying? They're trying to engage with the employees. They're trying to change the tone within the organization. This is a direct comment from one focus group participant, one employee, who said, "We are getting over the hump and we are recovering from the hangover." And that person gave credit squarely on Gail for the work that she's been doing. So overall, these were very positive reviews for administration. That led to the third theme that emerged from this process, and that was that communication is improving, but more refinement is needed. And the employees cited a few things. They cited the monthly e-newsletter and all staff meetings. Those are generally well received, although there were some that believed that they could be tweaked around specific themes, or maybe having departments present their ways in which we can tweak that. There was high marks for the administration being open and transparent. Direct quote, "Gail has broken through barriers." That's a direct quote from one of the employees. One thing that was very clear, though, and that the employees admitted, and which I wanted to know about, was that employees filter their information based on the relevance to their job. And all agree that there are too many emails, and many agree that there are too many CYA emails, which is just kind of part and parcel of the world that we live in today. Several employees that were interviewed also wanted to see more department level all staff meetings. They like the all agency meetings. They would also like to see an all staff meetings. The fourth theme, staffing, training, and onboarding. CPS and economic assistance expressed concerns about staffing and caseloads. And there is a desire, some employees were very passionate about this, a desire for consistent onboarding and training, and really the desire for support, for ongoing support for new employees. What I think is reassuring, even though it's going to be a problem, is that all employees that were interviewed in this process see the staffing shortages as a persistent problem well into the future. So they're very clear-eyed about the macro level issues that are facing the profession. So their big issue is having that ongoing support for new employees and being consistent in the onboarding and training process. That then leads us into the fifth and final theme here, and that is they want the why. They want the agency to answer the why for the vision and values, and they want the agency to show it. So why is a vision needed? How are we going to implement it? What do these values mean? One person said that getting the employees to buy into the vision and values, quote, will be the hardest part for leadership. All right. What was interesting is that they volunteered this, and they feel that supervisors are key to the implementation of the vision and values because, in the words of one, they set the tone. And a couple people touched on this and said that this is a direct quote from one of them: lack of resources cannot be used as an excuse. Lack of resources as an excuse cannot be used when it comes to the vision and the values and implementing that. So with those themes, we then were able to reach some conclusions. We were able to reach the conclusion that
Just
Yep,
a minute,
go right ahead.
Jason. Carrie has a
I
question.
just want to go back to
Go for it.
theme number one, and my question maybe isn't for you, sir, but maybe for the agency. Do we survey clients about their view of the human service zone? And if we do survey clients on that, is that shared with the employees?
We don't, as a zone, we don't survey clients that I'm aware of. Our like family services, clients that are involved in family services, there's different reviews that are done statewide that might involve, if those cases are picked, might involve family members, and they might be interviewed from CFS for those reviews. But that's not across the board. Economic assistance there are some times a review, but that's through the federal review process.
Right, and I don't know to what degree they reach out to clients. I know that our quality control
Yeah.
department will occasionally reach out to clients as part of a case review.
Yeah,
I don't know if part of that review is assessing their experience with the agency or the program
Or
itself,
if it's
related to-
policy.
Yeah.
more about policy, not necessarily customer service.
That might be a way to
Mm-hmm.
really get a better handle on how the public does see Cass County Social Services, is by getting some of that feedback from our customers.
Thank you.
If I can follow up on that, I appreciate the question, Carrie. I think what my wonder is in terms of other community partnerships that the zone is partnering, are there any inquiries or interviews or surveying of any kind happening with those groups?
No,
Between the client and the zone?
no, not that I'm aware of, no. Say like Nexus Path or something like that, because those are state agreements, or like with the adoption, with ASK or things like that, those are state contracts. So, yeah, not that I'm aware of.
And maybe you can clarify for me when you say because they're state contracts, like why does that maybe take them off the table?
It doesn't. I mean, but they might, through their agreement, they might be evaluated through that process. So some of our cases might be looked at that way. The X amount of cases might be reviewed. So some of our families might be reviewed in that process, and our workers. The ASK cases or the Nexus Path family cases. So we would see that.
Sure, I think maybe, and I'm not sure, I don't want to put words in Carrie's mouth, right, but if this thing is about that perception between, right, and not so much about was the case successfully resolved, handled,
Right.
whatever that might be,
Right.
but in that interagency collaboration, I think that might be something for us to consider moving forward.
Because sometimes those clients are shared clients, even
Right.
like with us at Job Service,
Right.
with the JOBS program, and the BEST program, those are shared clients. Not necessarily specific workers working with our clients that are here in Cass
Right.
County because of eligibility redesign.
Right, that's
Those- That's the tricky part.
the tricky part.
But they're still shared clients that live in Cass County.
Thanks. Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Jason.
So we then arrived at the end of this process, the research process, the two mesofacts. The one mesofact that the culture is bad. That is refuted by the scores that people gave and the comments that they shared in the employee interviews. The health score for the agency work environment was 87%. The health score for the department work environment, their individual department work environment, was 85%. The agency earned high marks on department collaboration, respect, comfort in the workplace, camaraderie, and trust. There was a common sentiment and common expressions that things are getting better. There were noticeable differences, though, some differences between long-term employees versus newer employees. Newer employees, of course, don't know anything different. Long-term employees, of course, have that experience, and they remember how things were. And so there were a lot of criticisms amongst some, not all, of the long-term employees as to the changes that have taken place within the system, most notably the new state system, which shouldn't surprise anybody because it's an adjustment. But there were noticeable differences there. And those views were colored, obviously, by the new state system in which Human Services is operating in. When you then take a look at the next mesofact on negative public views, again, to reiterate, they couldn't cite anything recently. It also became clear that the public probably has a limited understanding of Human Services, and they make assumptions about the profession. So they're basing a lot of their beliefs, their assumptions on what happened in the past. And there were some employees that volunteered this, that said that when they said that they were working for Human Services, newer employees, people who are outside of Human Services would either inquire as to what they're going to be doing, or they'd say, "Oh, I can't believe you can do that job, that how difficult that would be." Those kind of sentiments. So many of those employees that say that there's negative public views are making an assumption that the public sees the agency in a negative light, and even understands what Human Services does. So in identifying those mesofacts, we were able to say, okay, these are assumptions here. Things have been changing. And that then leads us into where we are today in this alignment process. So in taking a look at this information, this was all conducted back in January and February. I met with the leadership team in April 25th to be exact. We had the leadership team, and we zeroed in really in looking at the alignment process. We identified 4 elements, and we divided them into 2 parts. Communications flows into your engagement, which then flows into ownership, and then that then ultimately leads to the delivery of services. We are wanting to look at the what and the how. So the what is, communications and engagement. What does communications look like? What is the process for getting communications? What does engagement look like? What is the process by which employees are being engaged? And then we lead into the how. How are we going to own the vision and values? How are we going to deliver those services? And when we take a look at the ownership of these elements, it became very clear that agency and department leadership really owns the communications and engagement. And the employees need to take ownership of the vision and values and the delivery of services. To break that down even further, the alignment process really has lines of responsibility. So you take a look and you see that agency and department leaders have responsibility on communications. How is information being communicated within the agency? the onboarding, orientation, and training processes. Those are the big ones. Those are areas that were flagged early on in the surveys. They were also flagged by the previous alignment team last fall. Then the alignment team and employees have the responsibility to own the vision and values and to work to embed that vision and those values within the agency's culture and to demonstrate the vision and values to the clients. And that's what we're focused on. And what's really working out well, and I'll let Gail jump in here because we had that meeting in April and then we presented these findings in August. And as part of that, Samantha and Gail also presented on communications and training as well. But what we've effectively done now is we've taken communications and training and we've said, okay, this is the responsibility for the agency leadership. We now need to focus on these other areas. And the alignment team, and we did reconstitute the alignment team, so you know, we added new people onto the alignment team. We asked the previous alignment team if they wanted to continue. Some decided because of work obligations they couldn't, and we added new members on there. And that's the team that we have right now, and they're zeroing in on these areas. And Gail, is there anything you want to add about communications and training?
And I'll send this out via email. I wasn't going to make copies of all of that, but at the August meeting, the things we worked on as a leadership team, so our managers of our department, Samantha and I, is really like sometimes people don't know what that communications is, like our team members out there. So we put together what our communications overview that every team member received is actually, because it does come from a lot of different places, and we have a lot of different stakeholders that engage with us, our state partners, our county partners, our clients, our community partners, our schools. It depends on where you're at. So we put this together. It's kind of a live document to show team members, like, this is what you can expect, and the newsletter will be monthly. So to give them an idea of this is where I might receive this information and how I might receive it. The next part of this plan, and we're working on this currently, is to have a kind of a one-stop shop for all of this. We're redoing our SharePoint for the zone, that it will be the main point, because what's happening now, there's many different SharePoints each department has. So the zone will have that main SharePoint. County IT, Bob, has been very helpful in that. We're going to roll that out. So we teased it a little bit at this August meeting. We shared this. It was helpful and eye-opening, I believe, for team members to see that and go through that. We will be, our supervisors are key in rolling this out, not just the managers, it's the supervisors. So in November, we're going to be sharing that with them as well, the vision for that. And then in January, we're going to go live with that document and have many more items in that process that is more, one could say, automated, like one-stop shop. Because the more we can be consistent in the information that goes out and one place where you go and get it, there is a need still for departments to have specific information, but the zone itself, that employees know where to get that communication, how to get it, it's consistent across the basis. We've come a long ways, but that will be key, the next step. In addition to that, and I'll send you the PowerPoint that we had in the August meeting. It was a really positive meeting, I think, for every team member there. Heard a lot of positive things after that, a lot of feel good kind of things, not just for me, but I think team members across realize that we have, back when the survey was done, we had about 116 FTEs filled. We're at probably 100, and today we're about at just under 130, probably 129. Like, so a lot different. You know, we're getting closer to our full capacity, and our, you know, yes, we're a young tenured team or a younger couple-year tenured team, but there's more stability in that team as well. As far as onboarding, and we've had an onboarding process for a while, that people get onboarded, they have their first day county with the county, Brielle here, and then they come over and we do our part. Everybody goes through the same thing, they get the same thing. And now, and each of our departments, there is a 2-week onboarding. Here's your 2-week plan and some checklists for every hour almost of your week is planned out. Back in January or even prior to that time, remember in family services, we were onboarding with other zones. We're not doing that any longer. I just received their onboarding plan. It just warmed my heart to like see like the effort that Carissa and Rebecca and their team has put together for their onboarding of their new workers. It looks great. So that is key. Once we become stabilized, to have that onboarding and training plan. And then the next part of that is ongoing training for our team. Not only that training that's required because of the work you do, the ongoing training, that eligibility, that's kind of state run. Everything is there. That process is guided by our state partners, but the training as a zone that we're going to make sure quarterly our team members have. That's something we're going to be rolling out in 25 as well. Did I miss something? She'll start coughing if she talks, so she can't talk, so I will just talk. Go ahead, Jason.
No problem. So where we are right now is the alignment team that we have, the reconstituted alignment team. We are focusing on expectations and standards. There is a commitment that they put into writing where they realize that the system that we're operating in as a state is, process management. And that's the reality. We work within that system, but Cass Human Service Zone's commitment is that it chooses to be people-centered in its approach in working, and this is key, with one another and in serving our clients. And so the expectations that the alignment team is building right now zeroes in on 3 areas: sincerity, support, professionalism. Everything flows starting with sincerity, being sincere by demonstrating empathy, pride, respect, and being accountable. That then leads into providing support, which is working together as a team, understanding and appreciating everybody's role and what they're doing, sharing information, stepping outside one's role when necessary in order to support their coworkers in the common work, and a real commitment in mentorship of new staff. And then that flows right into professionalism. And that is and they're very adamant on this, emphasizing this commitment to excellence, but also accepting the differences amongst themselves and certainly with the clients that they serve, being inclusive, having a commitment and a process for healthy conflict resolution, setting and abiding by these common standards, and a real commitment to professional development. And so we're working through that. I can tell you that right now they identified some areas that they wanted more training on, or that they had ideas on training. So we developed a list. I had them develop a list of areas that they wanted to have addressed, fully knowing that Samantha may very well be already working on some of these areas. They put their list together. They shared that with Samantha and Gail. Gail and Samantha have that information. We're now moving into having a discussion on mentorship. What does a mentorship approach look like? And we're going to be developing that in our next meeting, our couple meetings. And then in terms of professional standards, what should the professional standards be for Cass Human Service Zone? They're going to be developing that. What I have found, what I've observed with this group is that it's a group that is very cohesive. It's a group that is very positive. It's a group that is really committed to seeing this through, which is very positive. There's no other way to put it. I think that we've turned a corner in many ways. Certainly from what I've seen from when we started this process back last year, when we were talking about vision and values, I think that there's been a change in the tone within the agency that I can see just through the employees that I've interacted with. And so I think we're in a good place. The plan, just so that you know, is to wrap everything up by the end of this year. So there will be, we're going to be having meetings through the end of this month. We'll come again a couple times, but we'll come again certainly in person in November. Then we're going to meet with the leadership team, and then we're going to look at engaging the supervisors on the process and wrapping everything up by December.
Questions, comments, thoughts? It's been a robust process in this, but I am glad we kind of took a little detour in January when Jason called me up and said, "Oh, I think we have to do a climate assessment." I'll admit, my stomach went, "Oh, really? Let's talk about this." But it was a really good thing, and it came out. It's getting traction. Our team across the zone is strong. I think is very strong. Our leadership is strong, and we're making headways. You know, Dan.
Yeah, Gail, and everybody. I just want to make a comment. Honestly, this is truly to yourself and to everybody involved, especially on the leadership team. Well done. My takeaway is if there's a commitment to see this through, you're truly going to evolve the Cass County zone to have a greater impact. And what you laid out here today is a sign of true leadership, and to keep it going. This was very impressive, and I know it wasn't easy, and it took a lot of time, but if you do use it, it'll serve you well.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate Jason's expertise. One thing, it was very evident when I first came on board, like I couldn't do this alone. I needed outside support for that. So Jason, it actually came from doing a strategic plan with the county. I was part of that. And that's where I met Jason, because I was sitting there. I was very new in my role at that time. I thought, I need to talk to him because we need something like this. So that's how I met Jason, and we had a conversation. So that's where this started, had that conversation, and really built our administration team. I'm really proud of the team that has been built at the zone, and couldn't do it without the team that we have. And each and every one, you can ask anybody over across the street. I tell everyone it's because each and every one of the team members over there, they lead by where they're at. And I really believe that. So I'm excited for where we're going. It's a much different place than 2.5 years ago. So.
Gail, I would just jump in and echo what Dan said. I think, a lot of credit to you and to Jason for developing this information and really the work that you've done. Because, clearly there were, some things previous to you coming on board that hadn't been fully and probably appropriately addressed. And I think this really got to the heart of what was needed, and you have not only identified that, but now followed through on it. And so nothing but high credit to you for going in that direction when Jason showed that the data made it apparent that that's what was needed and following through. So great job.
Yeah, I would just echo that as well, everything that's been said. And one of the things that Jason mentioned was he's noticed this change, and yet there's been a weekly, I think I heard, meeting on it, right? And we know that what gets monitored gets valued. And so in these last 2 months in this work, is there a plan then also in place for once Jason bows out, how that monitoring and regular communication and, maintenance of all of this great work will be part of that plan as well?
Yeah, Jason's meeting with the alignment team weekly. That's his role. That's his role. Leadership is not part of those meetings. That's very intentional. We will be part when we're invited to that. I want the team members to develop that alignment plan and come to us. Like, I want it driven by the team members. And maybe all of it, I'll be like, yeah, oh, well, maybe let's talk about this part of it, but I want it driven by the team members for a reason, we all have to be part of it.
Yeah, no, and I absolutely appreciate that.
And then moving in the future, hopefully, yes, I want to continue that process somehow. We need to continue that process moving forward.
Yeah, I think, right, like that piece is going to be key for the long term.
Yeah,
not
and
just
hopefully we can get more involvement on our team too. Yeah. Any other thoughts, questions? Thank you, Jason. I hope you appreciate the effort today. We would have much enjoyed having you in person, but thank you for making it through. I really, truly appreciate that. And
Believe me, I'd much rather have been there in person too, believe me. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. And if you have any other comments or questions, feel free to reach out to me. You have my contact information on that last slide. So feel free to contact me. And I look forward to reporting back to this board at the end of this process.
And I will send out some of these things just so for your reference, just for information. And when I get the information about those stats, I will share that as well. Other than that, it's just the operations report. You can kind of read through that, for your reading pleasure. There's really nothing to highlight much in there. The recruiting and staffing data is through the end of August. We do have a few team members now starting more this month, 2 more in the PM shift for CPS or in family services. So really that shift is almost full. I think we have 1 CPS position for the PM shift closing this week. So then we will have that PM shift full, which has been a challenge. So that is a new thing. We're excited to get kicked off and get people trained and see how that impacts our community. And we have 3 EA eligibility workers starting at the beginning of November. So recruitment has been going well as well. So with that, any other items? Not? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seems aye. Thank you.